This video is brought to you by Sailrite. Visit Sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions. In this video, Sailrite will show you how to make lounge chair cushions. We'll be using the world's best outdoor fabric, Sunbrella Upholstery fabric from Sailrite. By upholstering projects including seat chairs, table runners, throw pillows, and of course outdoor furniture, you can create luxurious outside lounge areas. Take your porch or patio to the next level with a little help from Sailrite. We found some old furniture that's frame was made from metal. To restore it, we used a wire brush and steel wool to remove loose paint. Then we used Rust-Oleum rust reformer, which helps to convert any rust to a paintable surface. Then, after it dried, we used Rust-Oleum hammered for a beautiful look on all of our metal furniture. Now that our frame is ready, Cindy, a professional seamstress for Sailrite, will show us how to make lounge chair cushions. The first step is taking measurements.
We're going to start this Chase lounge chair, and we're going to use a 3-inch piece of foam to pad the whole thing, and then we're going to add a headrest pillow up here. So first I'm going to measure for the body pieces of it. Inside the arms, 22, and this piece will be separate from this piece because of this bend in the frame. So we're going to need a piece that's 22 by 19 for the seat. For this part, I'm going to make it 28.5. And the back is 30 inches tall, but the cushion will sit on top of the seat cushion, so I'm going to subtract 2.5 inches from that and make it 27.5 finished by 21.5. This is just a little bit narrower than the seat.
Not all lounge chair frames are the same size, so be sure to measure yours.
So I'm ready to cut my pieces for my chair, and I've added 1/4 inch to all my original dimensions to get my seam allowances. And I also need 2 hinges to go in between the back and the seat, and then the seat and the foot. So I'm going to cut those 22 wide by 4.5 long. And I also need ties to hold it onto the chair, and I'm going to use 12 of those, 2 at the top, 2 at the hinge between the back and the seat, and then 2 at the foot. So I need 12 of them, and those will be 2 inches wide by 12 inches long.
These ties will be made from several long strips of fabric that are folded 3 times and then cut to size after they are sewn.
My boxing will be cut at 3.25 inches wide. Zippers will be cut 20, I'm going to make them just a little bit shorter than the width. So I'm going to cut those at 20 wide by, boxing strip is 3.25 inches wide. So to get the width of my zipper, I'm going to divide that by 2, which is 1.62. And I'm going to add 1 inch, and the 1 inch is for this area here that I fold down.
This fold down, which equals about 1 inch, will conceal the edge of the zipper and make for a clean edge right in the middle of the zipper teeth, as seen here. Now we know what size to cut our plates, our hinges, our zipper plaques, our ties, and our boxing. These measurements are for our lounge chair. Notice we cut the plates 1/4 inch larger on all sides than the desired finish size, and the boxing is 1/4 inch wider than the foam thickness.
So because I'm going to just cut my boxing strips straight across the width of the fabric and then cut them to size later, I'm going to go ahead and cut 6 of those, and I may need more later, but I'm going to start with 6, and those are at 3.25 inches.
Our lounge chair will have 3 cushions, one for the seat, the back, and the foot. We need this boxing to wrap around the entire perimeter of each one of those 3 cushions, minus the area for the zipper. The absolute bare minimum that we would need is 218 inches, and that doesn't even account for the stripes. So divide that by our width of fabric, and we need at least 4 strips. We're going to cut 6.
This piece of Sunbrella, the right, or it doesn't matter which side is the right or the wrong, you can use either side. They pretty much look the same. I am going to mark the right and the wrong side just with a pencil mark and an X, just because I like to keep track of that. Some of the Sunbrellas, you cannot use both sides. There is a right and a wrong side to them, but this one there is not.
Throughout this video, we'll be using some terms that are common for building cushions. Our lounge chair is basically box cushions, and this is the anatomy of a cushion. On this illustration, you can see the zipper plaque. That's the place that the foam is inserted into the cushion cover and the zipper closed.
I also need to determine what I want to use as the center of this on this chair, because I want the same stripe to go all the way up the chair, even though there are 3 different cushions. The way I usually figure that out is to stand back and look at what stands out to me. And on this fabric, this white stripe is what stands out. So this is what I'm going to use as my center. And I want to make sure that I have enough width that I can lay 2 pieces side by side. Otherwise, I'd be wasting a whole bunch of fabric. So my pieces are 22.5. So I need 11.25 in the center. So here's my center. Here's 22.5. And I'm just checking to make sure I can repeat this over on the other side of the fabric. And I can't. I can't repeat that because my 11.25 is going to end up off the edge of the fabric. So I need to choose a different center. So if I make this dark green line right here, my center, and try it again. There's my center, and I need 22.5. And if I find that same green line over here, and put my pin in the center, 11.25. There's my 22.5, so I can get both front and back out of the same width of fabric. Okay, I have the width determined on these pieces, and the width on the seat and the foot will be the same. The width on the back is just a little bit narrower. So for the seat, I needed 19.5. So I'm going to mark my 19.5. With a couple pins, and then draw a line.
For your information, a full materials list is found at the end of this video.
And now I can cut this along the pattern of the fabric. Because it's a woven fabric, I know it's going to be straight.
Because we carefully determined the center stripe, we can get 2 up, thus saving fabric as we nest each one of these plates. A plate is the top side of a cushion or the bottom side of the cushion. The banding around it is called boxing.
Okay, I've cut this seat panel, and I'm going to put a pin in the back top of this piece so that I know right side, wrong side. And then when I come over to cut the second one, because this is not a balanced stripe, it's not even on one side to the other. It's not even from here over as it is from here over. It's uneven. And I want my cushion to match all the way around. So I'm going to flip this over, and this is going to become the back of this piece. So I'm going to match up the stripe and cut it just like I did this one and put a pin back here. And that will remind me that this will match at the front. This becomes the front.
The pins are always inserted on the right side of the fabric, even though this fabric does not really have a right side, wrong side. Both sides could be utilized. However, you may pick a fabric that has only one side that could be used as the outside surface.
So this is the top and bottom of my seat cushion. And when I put this boxing strip in the middle of it.
If we would have used a hot knife to cut out the fabric, it would have eliminated the raveling that you see on the edge of the fabric.
You can see that I can match this cushion now all the way around. The top to the boxing to the bottom, and by matching I mean the stripe matches all the way around the cushion, which will give you a much nicer looking cushion.
To keep from getting confused, we'll lay these two plates on top of the chair where they belong. It's also a good idea to use masking tape and mark each one of them.
Now I'm going to cut the foot part, and it's the same width as the seat was, only it's 29 inches long. And I'm also going to put a pin on the right side at the back of this one.
Let's go back to discussing the hot knife to cut the fabric out. There are some fabrics that unravel rather quickly, and in those situations a hot knife is definitely recommended. But you'll notice throughout this video, even not using the hot knife, the unraveling is easy to contend with this fabric.
So here's the two pins in my back section of my seat, my foot piece. I'm going to leave it right sides together. So I use this green stripe as the center of my other pieces, and the back piece is just a little bit narrower. I'm going to cut it at 22. So I'm going to mark my sides again at 22 to cut, and this one is 28 long. So this is the back cushion, so I'm going to mark the bottom of the back cushion because it's not front back, it's top bottom. So I want the bottom of the back cushion marked, so the pin's going to end up in the opposite place when I flip it over on this one. And I'll show you when I put it on the chair. So I'm going to put a pin on the right side of this one also. And then when I put this together, this is going to be the bottom of my cushion.
Our boxing and all our plates are cut. Up next, we'll cut ties. These will be used to fasten the cushion to the chair.
I have all this scrap left that I could cut the ties out of, but I'm going to show you why I'm not going to cut the ties this direction on this fabric. Because of the weave, it's pretty thick, and if I try to fold it like this, it's hard to fold and it's hard to hang on to. If I fold it along the weave of the fabric, it folds much nicer, and it's going to be much easier to make the ties. You can tell that just by trying it with your fabric. Take the scrap of your fabric, fold it this way, and see how nicely it folds, how easily it folds, and then fold it this way, and just go with whichever way folds easier. You don't want to make it any harder on yourself than it has to be. For the ties, I'm going to go ahead and cut all the way across the width and then cut it down to size. And I will use the hot knife to burn the ends of these because this fabric is way too thick to try and turn the ends under to finish them off. I'm cutting them 2 inches, and I'll cut them down to 12.
For us, we want to use ties at 6 locations. We need 2 each at each location, and each of them are 12 inches long.
I can actually sew this whole long strip into one tie and then cut it down to 12 rather than cutting it into pieces and working with the small pieces.
Our fabric is 54 inches wide. We need 3 strips for the ties.
The next thing I want to cut is the hinges that connect the cushions together, and those are going to be as wide as the cushion, so they are 22, and I'm going to use the same center mark so that everything matches. So I want those to be 22 by 4.5, and I need 2 of them.
The hinges will be folded in half and attached to the seat bottom of our lounge chair to attach the foot portion and the back portion.
For the zippers, I just cut straight strips across the fabric, so I'm going to cut those down to size now. And I want those to be 20 inches, so I'm going to use my green center line and cut them 20 inches long. And I'll need 6 of those. And I will need 6 of these, one for each of the bigger cushions. We already made the zipper for the headrest pillow, so these go in the boxed cushions. And my boxing strip is 3 1/4 inches wide. So to get the width of my zipper, I'm going to divide that by 2, which is 1.62, and I'm going to add 1 inch, and the 1 inch is for this area here that I fold down. I'm going to mark those on the back with a Z so I remember that they're the zippers.
Our lounge chair only has 3 box cushions, the seat, the back, and the foot. So we only need 3 zipper plaques. Why do we need to cut 6? Well, that's because each side accommodates for one side of the zipper. You can see here a fold is inserted into this zipper plaque, and then it is butted up next to the opposite one. That's why we need 6 for our 3 zippers. Coming up next, we'll be making a headrest pillow for the lounge chair. This is an optional step, but we believe it makes the chair look great and it's more comfortable.
Now we want to put a headrest pillow on this chair that's going to end up right here. And I found this one on another chair that's already made, and someone's already done the hard work for us of the measuring and the designing. So I'm going to use this as a pattern for my pillow for the new chair.
Don't worry, you don't need to have this. We're going to show you how to do the patterning and give you the measurements.
So here's the hinge on this one. This is the back piece with the zipper in it, and then the front piece is what makes the shape with these tucks in it right here. So I'm going to take this apart and use this as my pattern.
Cindy cuts apart the seams so that she can take measurements of this headrest pillow. We'll be showing you an illustration showing the exact measurements of what to cut if you desire a headrest pillow for your lounge chair. These will also be shown at the end of this chapter.
So here's the hinge piece, and this is the zipper piece. And this is the piece that makes the shape of the pillow with these tucks on the corners. So I'm going to open these up so I can use this as my pattern, and then I'll put the tucks back in the new piece. And this gives the pillow its depth. This hinge is bigger than the other two because it will fall back here if you don't want to use the pillow on the chair, or it flips over here and holds the pillow onto the front of the chair. So it has to cover the depth of the cushion right here and then fall down as a pillow. So this little piece that fits on the each end of the zipper is 2.5 wide and 8 long, and you will need 2 of those. The zipper plaque is 19 long and 5 wide, and you'll also need 2 of those. I'm making it 5 to add for the piece that we fold under to apply the zipper to. The face of the pillow, or the front of the pillow, is 24 wide by 10.5 long. And the strap, or the hinge, I'm adding 1/2 inch at the end because I'm going to turn under that much to hem it to finish the end. Let's make this one 22 because we made the others 22. So they'll be the same. So we're 22 by 10.5.
Here are the exact measurements you need for the headrest pillow. We made our hinge the width of our other hinges that we used on the lounge chair. You should do the same. Cindy will continue on here using the old headrest pillow that she found as a pattern for the new fabric.
These little pieces don't have to match anything, so I'm going to cut them out of this little strip that's left on the side. Okay, now I'm going to cut the front piece for the headrest pillow. And this is the green line that I'm using as a center on my other pieces, so I'm going to center this one also. This pillow has a little tuck in each corner, and these are marked by a clip in the old pattern piece. So I'm going to also put a clip in my piece so I know where those tucks are. And that gets done at each corner. I'm just making clips in all the corners right now. There's the headrest pillow, and I'm going to put the pin down here at the bottom because that's the right side. Now I'm going to cut the hinge, and we decided to cut this at 22 like the other hinges are, but I'm still going to center it and cut it the same length from here to here as the old one. But it's going to be 22 inches wide. So this was 19 by 5.5.
Cindy accidentally measures 5.5. It's actually 5 inches, and that includes for the fold for the zipper.
I did center this on my green center line, but it does not have to be centered on the stripe because it won't show on the ever show on the front of the chair.
Even though this is the back of the pillow, I would still center the stripes if your fabric has stripes. I think it looks best even when it's laying backwards.
And I'm going to put a Z on the back of this so I remember that this is a zipper plaque because there's a couple of these pieces that are just about the same size. The last thing to cut is the bias for the cording. So to do that, I'm going to lay my ruler with a 45-degree angle on the ruler on the straight edge of the fabric and draw a line and start there to get my bias cut. And the reason I like to cut it bias is because it goes around the corners easier and it doesn't fray. I'm going to cut this bias at 1.5 because I know that that will work on the cording that I'm going to use underneath it.
When making bias piping or cording, we highly recommend using this rotary cutter, the cutting mat, and the clear acrylic ruler. This clear acrylic ruler is a must for anyone doing upholstery work. After picking out your fabric from Sailrite, order these parts as well.
And I'm going to fold this over on itself in half, just so it fits on my cutting mat.
We've decided to add piping to both the top and the bottom side of each cushion. So we need to take the perimeter of all 3 cushions and multiply it times 2 to determine how much piping we need. In most situations, 55 feet of piping is required for most lounge chairs.
Now when I sew these together, I also want a 45-degree angle to stitch them together. So I'm going to cut that. And you can stack these on top of each other if you like to cut them. You'll need to do them all right sides up if you're going to stack them together. Like that. And so these are all still right sides up. So to stitch them together, I'm going to put them right sides together. And when I stitch, I'll be stitching from this angle to this angle. And the bias cut in that makes it so that all of the thickness doesn't fold over on itself. Now when I stitch this together, this is where I'm going to stitch from the angle here to the angle here. And I'm going to chain stitch these, so I'm just going to keep stitching piece after piece without breaking my thread. So to actually make the cording, I'm just going to lay this piece in the center, fold it over, and there's a tunnel in this foot that's going to carry it through.
We're using the Sailrite Ultrafeed LS1 sewing machine. This is a straight stitch sewing machine. The Ultrafeed sewing machines have a cording tunnel built right into the standard foot to accommodate piping like this.
I'm going to open up the seam so it's as flat as it can be. This fabric is a little bit thick, so it's a little bit harder to work with than other fabrics are.
If you're using a home sewing machine, you'll need to install a cording foot.
But just let the machine do the work and guide it into the foot.
Everything is now cut out, and here it is laid out. Cindy will explain each piece.
Okay, these are all the pieces that we need to make the cover for that cushion on that chair. This is the pillow front, this is the hinge for the pillow, and this is the pillow back for the headrest pillow. All this makes up the headrest pillow. Here's the two hinges that go between the back and the seat cushion and the seat and the foot cushion. This is the back plate and its zipper. This is the seat plate and its zipper. That's the foot piece plate and its zipper. These are my ties, which I will sew all in one long strip and then cut them down to length. And these are all the strips that I need for the boxing, which I'll cut to length as I put the cushions together. This goes together in a process. First I'll put the cording on everything, and then I'll start with the seat cushion and start constructing it. And the cushions get constructed as they're put together. So try to hang in there and stay with me. It will all work.
Next up, we'll show you how to make the zipper plaques. Our cushion has 3, not including the headrest. We'll show you how to make one. You'll need to make the others as well at this time.
When I make the zipper, I turn down 1 inch and put a few pins in it.
When sewing this lounge chair cushion, we're going to be using a stitch length of approximately 4 to 5 millimeters in length.
Then I'm going to place that fold in the middle of the teeth and run the right edge of my foot right up against the teeth.
We want this straight stitch to be close to the zipper, but not on top of it. If it were on top of it, it would make it very difficult to use the slider. So, using the presser foot against the teeth is a perfect position for that stitch to be placed. We're using a number 5 Vislon zipper, but you could use a number 5 coil zipper as well.
And I want my zipper to match, the stripes to match, so I'm going to fold under on this side, the 1 inch.
A Vislon zipper typically lasts a little longer outdoors, though they both can be used for indoor or outdoors.
And place the 2 folds together and the edge of the foot against the teeth of the zipper and stitch it again.
When sewing the other side of the zipper, be sure to sew it on the same side that you originally sewed the first one on. In other words, against the same side of the presser foot. That way, the distance of the stitch is exactly the same on the left side and the right side of the zipper. That means you'll typically start sewing from the opposite end when you do the other side. We always recommend installing the slider now, so it's not forgotten.
I put the slide on, I have this little lever going up away from the bottom of the zipper. Slide it on the end and just tug a little bit on either side of the teeth, and your slide will go on easily.
Make all your zipper plaques as shown. Coming up next, we'll make the ties that'll tie the cushion onto the metal frame.
You can take, fold this and pin it. I'm going to see if I can do it without pinning it, just because it's faster, but if you need to, you're going to fold each side into the center and then fold it in half again and stitch along this edge.
We have 6 locations that these ties need to be used, and each length of tie is approximately 12 inches, and there are 2 at each location, so 12 times 12 is 144 inches worth.
I've got this tie all made in one big long strip, and I'm going to cut it down to 12 inches with a hot knife.
Since it is basically just a tie, it doesn't have to exactly be 12 inches. We're using the Sailrite Edge hot knife, which keeps the edges of the fabric from unraveling. If you don't have a professional hot knife like the Sailrite Edge hot knife, you can use a wood burning tool or a soldering gun.
The hot knife finishes off the edge so it doesn't ravel, and it cuts it.
Next up, we need to sew the piping onto the plates. We're going to show it with only one plate, but you need to do all 6 now.
I have the zipper ready for the seat plate. The first thing I'm going to do is put the cording, the bias cording that I made around the perimeter of these 2 pieces. And then I'm going to add the hinges to it.
Always try to start your piping at the back side of the cushion in the middle. So here we're leaving a tail that's approximately 2 to 3 inches unsewn so that it can be joined together when the piping goes all the way around the perimeter of this plate. As mentioned before, the Sailrite Ultrafeed sewing machines have a cording tunnel built right into the standard foot.
And I need to clip at the corners so it goes around the corner nicely.
Watch what Cindy does here. She will find the corner, bury her needle, lift the presser foot, then turn the piping and the plate, lower the presser foot, and continues to sew. That makes a perfect corner. She'll do that at each one of the corner locations. Here we are at the next corner. Cut. Sew up to the corner about a ½ inch away from the edge. Leave the needle buried, lift the presser foot, rotate the assembly, lower the presser foot, then continue to sew. Let's skip ahead to where we have to join the piping together.
When I get back to where I started, I'm going to cut this about 3 inches longer than my end here. And open this up. Pull the fabric back and trim the cording, just the cording off, even with the beginning of my bias. And then fold this back, and I fold it back in a diagonal line so it doesn't all fold back over on itself. It will be not quite as thick this way. Tuck it inside and fold it back over.
We're installing piping on all of our plates. We have 6 plates for our lounge chair. We're only going to show it on this one plate, but if you desire piping, you need to do it to all your plates now.
And there's the cording on the first piece. And I'm going to do the same with the other piece that's the same size as this one.
We'll start by building the seat cushion.
The first piece I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the edges of these hinges, and that's just turning under about a ½ inch for a hem on each of the short ends.
If your fabric has a right side and wrong side, be sure to fold the hem in towards the wrong side. You may have noticed that we use masking tape and labeled these hinges and all of our other assemblies so that we would not get confused.
I'm going to start putting the seat cushion together, and I need the 2 hinges that we made. I need the zipper, I need 2 pieces of boxing, and we're going to put 4 ties on this cushion. So first I'm going to put the ties at the back corners, back here.
Again, notice the masking tape with the labels. This greatly aids in helping to keep confusion to a minimal. Please do that if you have not done it already. To evaluate the location of the ties, take a look at your chair and see where it will tie easily. Then position those ties exactly where you want them for your particular chair. The ties should always be installed on the back plate, never the top plate.
This piece with the ties becomes my bottom piece, so that's all I'm going to do to this piece right now. I want the ties to be at the bottom. The hinges will be on the top piece.
The 2 hinges for our lounge chair will be attached to this seat. They are folded in half when sewn.
And I would like the stripes to match.
Be sure the hems on the two short sides are folded in.
So I'm folding this in half, and I'm going to stitch it into this seam.
You'll notice that when she does the sewing of the hinge, she does not do any reversing. That's because when the next boxing piece, the facing piece that goes around the perimeter of our box cushion is attached, it will re-sew that hinge yet again. So we don't have to worry about the stitches coming loose. If you want to do some reversing, you can. It's just not required.
So there's what that looks like with one hinge in, and I'm going to put the other hinge on this side.
The process for installing this hinge is done exactly the same way. We line up the stripes, fold it in half, and sew it to the edge of the top plate. We will not show this whole process.
And again, I want to match the stripes. Here's the top plate and the bottom plate of your seat cushion. One has ties, one has hinges. And I'm going to attach the zipper next. Also matching the stripe. And for the zipper, I'm going to start in about 2 inches and stop about 2 inches in so that I can attach the boxing piece to the end of it.
It is important to leave the 2 or 3 inches unsewn at each end of the zipper plaque so the boxing can be attached and then it can be sewn to the plate. You'll see that a little bit later. This Sunbrella upholstery fabric is beginning to stack up, layer upon layer, but you'll notice the Sailrite ultra-feed sewing machine does a phenomenal job of sewing it.
So there's what that looks like with the zipper in. Now I'm going to work on the boxing. And I've marked the wrong side of this with an X.
When sewing boxing to plates, remember right sides always face each other.
So I'm going to match up the stripes in the front and make sure I have enough to go around each side. I will have to add on to this to make it long enough to go around the corner. But the part I'm mostly concerned about is matching the front, so I'm going to do that first.
Since we're sewing a striped fabric, and the stripes only line up on the front side and the back side, we'll start with obviously the front side, as that is the most important area to line up the stripes. The sides, they obviously will not line up.
I need to clip the corners in this also.
The Sailrite ultra-feed sewing machines have a cording tunnel or piping tunnel built right into the standard foot. Notice she does the same process. She finds the corner about a ½ inch away from the edge of the fabric, lifts her presser foot, rotates the fabric, lowers her presser foot, and continues to sew, just like we did when we installed the piping onto the plates. If your sewing machine does not have a cording foot built into it, you need to install a cording or piping foot onto the sewing machine to sew this if you're using piping. Cindy notices the boxing's not long enough, so she stops short.
I'm going to have to add to this one also to make it long enough, and because I don't want my seam to be right here, because I already have this thickness and the thickness of this going together, I'm going to trim this off back here and put my seam over on the side and add to it back here.
What Cindy's doing here to add to the length of the boxing is completely acceptable, and it will look great too. So even if you're only short an inch or even 20 to 30 inches, don't worry about doing this when required. She's not even concerned about where the stripe lies. You'll notice it'll still look great.
So now I have a seam on the side instead of back here, and I have a piece that's way too long. So I'm going to put my clip in the corner and turn it, not sewing it, just turning it, and cut this, a couple inches beyond the end of the zipper. Then I can stitch the zipper end and the end of this boxing together, right sides together.
Use some scrap fabric to create a zipper stop.
This is a zipper stop.
Actually, just sewing over the teeth creates a zipper stop, but by adding this scrap piece of fabric, that helps to reinforce the stitch and also creates a better stop. If you're using a home sewing machine and you don't have a Sailrite Ultrafeed heavy-duty sewing machine, you may need to walk over the teeth by rotating the balance wheel by hand. We don't have to worry about that.
So now this is too long. I'm going to fold that extra underneath back here when I get around the corner. So go back to where I stopped.
Bury the needle at the corner. Rotate the balance wheel by hand to do this.
And I'm going to take that extra and just fold it under.
This is an awesome way to join the boxing to the zipper plaque and not have to be concerned about the extra length of boxing when attaching it, because this creates a beautiful piece and also a pocket for the slider of the zipper.
So there's what that looks like. The reason I do that extra there is because then I don't have to have an exact measurement for my boxing. And it also hides the end of the zipper.
The other side of our boxing needs more length as well, so here we'll join another piece of boxing to that.
Now when I get over to the other side, I want to stitch from the back side so I can start here and go around. So I need to turn it over.
Notice that a slit is still made in the boxing, which is now underneath the plate. As Cindy sews all these assemblies together, her stitch is about a ½ inch from the raw edge of the fabric, and as you can see, she carefully lines up the edges of the fabric so that they are even. Again, she's going to stop short so she can join the boxing to the zipper plaque just as she did on the other side of this cushion.
So here's the seam where I added my extra piece on this side. I'm going to clip the corner and turn it and then give myself a couple inches beyond the end of this and trim it off. And then stitch the end of the zipper and the end of the boxing together.
The slider has already been installed to the zipper. If you have not done that, be sure to do that now, because once this is sewn together, you would have to rip the stitches out to install the slider. Same process. The boxing's a little bit too long, but we don't have to worry about it because we're going to tuck it back on top of itself and create a nice pocket.
And there's that extra fabric that we had on the other side folded under there.
And here we're coming to the beginning spot where we started sewing. We sew a few inches over that and we're done.
Okay, so here's what your piece looks like right now. This is actually the bottom and this is the top. And once again, I'm going to match the stripes. So I'm going to put it right sides together. And you can see that the stripes match in the back and in the front. So I'm going to start at the front to make sure that those match because those are the ones that are most important. So here's my boxing strip and here's my hinge.
The hinge has already been sewn to the top portion of the plate. We're just sewing the boxing over top of that hinge. We didn't show it, but a slit's already been made at this corner. And that slit should never go or be cut past where we're sewing. At the next corner, we're going to show you how to accurately put the slit where it belongs. So keep watching. We want to show that before we move on to the next step. It is very important to be sure that the corners on the other side of the cushion are directly opposite of each other. And here Cindy will show you how to do that, making a slit.
I'm folding this where the corner is And I can see by the stripe that it's straight, so I'm going to clip there, and hopefully my corner will land at my clip, which it does. And we have that extra fabric there under the zipper, so I'm going to fold that in. And you can see that the stripe matches back here also.
She'll find the corner by folding the assembly at the corner to find it on the opposite side of the boxing and create a slit.
And fold that extra with the zipper underneath the zipper again, and my clip should meet at my corner.
On the inside of this assembly, the ends of the ties are just hanging loosely. You do not want to sew those in by accident, so be sure you push them inside the assembly so they do not get sewn in when sewing around the perimeter of this cushion. We're going to skip ahead to where we started sewing and just sew directly over there by a few inches, and we are done.
This one is ready to be turned inside out, or right side out.
The process for building each of the 3 box cushions that are required for this lounge chair is done exactly the same way. However, there is one important factor, and that is how they are joined together with the hinges. And there is an exact process for that. Cindy will explain that more in detail in the next chapter.
So this is the top with a hinge on each side, ties on the bottom, and your zipper in the back. And this piece goes right here on the chair. So we'll connect this piece next, the foot piece, and then we'll add the top piece to it.
We'll start by showing how to sew the foot box cushion to the seat box cushion.
This is the seat piece that we just finished, and here's our hinge. This is the foot piece that needs to be attached to it. So the first step in attaching these is to attach the top plate to the hinge. And again, I want my stripes to match. So I'm going to sew them together, sew the hinge part
Cindy's joining the top plate of the foot cushion
at the edge of the cushion where I started and stopped my cording, and match the stripes as I do that. Here's my hinge, and I'm going to attach it to where this cording is attached.
This is the folded portion of the hinge. You'll notice the fold. So she's lining up the fold with the raw edges of the plate on the bottom side. All of our pieces have been labeled with masking tape for easy identification. If you haven't done that, we recommend doing that highly. Again, no reason to do any reversing, as a boxing will be installed on top of this hinge in a later step. The top plate of the foot cushion is now attached.
So now we have the center seat is finished. Here's the seat, the piece that goes at the foot of the chair. And that's all we're going to do to this right now. We're going to set it aside for a few minutes. This is the other half of my foot piece. It has the cording applied to it. I need 2 boxing strips. The zipper will go back here.
This is the bottom plate of the foot cushion.
And we're going to put ties at the bottom corners of this.
That is where we deemed the ties would be best for our chair. Yours may be different. However, ties will always be attached to the bottom plate.
So the first thing I want to do is attach my ties and my zipper.
Again, no reversing is done over the ties because the boxing will secure the ties well in a later step. Now the zipper plaque will be installed. She notices that the slider was forgotten on this zipper plaque, so she installs that now. Our fabric has stripes, so she uses those to line up the zipper plaque. If yours doesn't have that, just center it.
So I'm starting on the zipper again about 2 inches away from the end and lining up the stripe. And stopping about 2 inches from the end.
To the bottom plate of the foot, we'll install the boxing.
Now I'm ready to apply the boxing strip. And I'm going to start at the front because that's the important part. And line up the stripe again.
Follow the exact same process that was done for the seat box cushion. We will not show all of this.
Here's the piece that we just sewed the hinge onto the foot plate. This is what it looks like. Here's your seat, and here's your foot, and here's your hinge. I'm going to fold this back inside and leave it there. It needs to be inside when we sew it. And I'm going to mark my corners on this piece by folding it and just making a clip. And what I'm doing here is folding the piping back on itself like that, and then going straight out from that to make a clip for the corner on the other side of the box.
This is done to ensure corners are lined up between the top plate and the bottom plate at the corners.
And I do that to all 4 corners. This is the bottom of the foot piece with the ties on it. Leave this cushion inside where it is now and flip this one over on top of it, and you want the zipper to be where the hinge is. Here's my hinge right here. So I'm going to stitch all 4 sides of this, leave the zipper open a little bit so you can get the cushion out from the inside.
When sewing the plates and the boxing of this foot cushion together, be sure that the seat cushion in the middle and any ties in the middle are not accidentally sewn into the perimeter stitch. So push them deeply inside the cushion if necessary. As she comes to the corner, you notice the little tuck from the excess boxing, which creates a pocket at the end of the zipper. Be sure that is tucked exactly the same way as it is on the other side of the boxing, so it matches.
When you come around the corner, you have to be careful that you don't catch this cushion that's tucked on the inside. So I'm going to push it over out of the way.
Alright, we're going to skip ahead to the opposite corner of the zipper. So here we're going to round this corner, and then we'll have the end of the zipper plaque again. And we have to make the tuck with the excess boxing there, just like we did previously. That creates the pocket at the end of the zipper. And now we come upon where we started sewing. We'll sew over that by a few inches, and we're done with this assembly. Now the foot and the seat are sewn together.
This is what it looks like after you get it sewn. It's all completely enclosed with a big lump in the middle because there's a cushion inside there. So I'm going to unzip the zipper and pull the cushion out. And also turn this one right side out. So here's the foot piece, here's the hinge, and here's the seat piece. With the ties at the bottom of the foot and at the edge of the top edge of the seat. So we've built these two pieces so far.
Up next, we'll sew the backrest top plate to the assembly.
So here's the foot piece that we just attached. Here's the seat piece that we made to begin with. And this is the backrest piece. I'm going to attach this piece here to the hinge, right sides together. This is the top plate. And the bottom plate, we'll get the pillow and the ties attached to it next.
As we did for the foot, we'll attach this top plate for the backrest to this assembly, right over the hinge. Cindy flips the panel so the seat assembly is on top. The backrest is on the underside of this assembly. Here the hinge is being sewn to that. Once the hinge has been sewn to the top plate of the backrest, we will stop because now we need to build the optional headrest pillow. That's coming up next. If you're not doing that, you can skip that chapter.
So here's what we have now, the front of the back piece, the seat, and the foot piece. And I'm going to fold all this up on itself again and then set it aside for a minute. All of this is going to end up on the inside when we put the next piece on.
If you'd like an optional headrest pillow, now's the time to build that so you can add it to your assembly.
And we also need to make the back pillow, the big pillow hinge. I'm just going to turn in about 1/2 inch on each edge, short edge and top stitch.
This is done exactly the same way we did the hinges for the seat. Next, we'll build the zipper plaque. This process is done exactly the same as what was done for our box cushions.
These are my two pieces for my pillow zipper. And to make the zipper for the pillow, I'm going to turn in about 1 inch and stitch the zipper in with the fold in the fabric at the middle of the teeth and this edge, the right edge of the foot up against the teeth.
Since we've shown this process before, we're going to go rather quickly through it.
And I'm going to do the same thing to add the other side to it. I just want to make sure that I've matched to my stripes. So hold it up next to the fold of the other piece and stitch it also with the foot, the right side of the foot up against the teeth of the zipper.
Don't forget to install the slider.
Slide it on the end and just tug a little bit on either side of the teeth and your slide will go on. These two small pieces that we cut go on the end here, and it looks like I've cut them too short or I've got my zipper too long. So I'm going to center it on this and still use it.
Back when she was doing measuring, she accidentally added a 1/2 inch extra.
And I probably have the zipper too wide, so I'm going to go back and trim this off after I sew these on. But I do want to trim the same amount off of this end and this end, so my zipper is still in the middle.
Before sewing over the teeth, again she uses some scrap fabric and cuts a stop.
And this little piece is going to be my zipper stop.
We'll add that opposite piece to the opposite side just as we did here and include a stop. We will not show all of this.
So here's what the zipper looks like for the back of the headrest pillow. This is the hinge that we finished the edges on for the back pillow. I'm going to fold it in half. And this is the pillow that I made the zipper plaque too big on. So I'm going to trim this off. And push those out, and then this hinge gets attached to this pillow zipper piece. This is my hinge and this is my zipper piece. The hinge gets sewn to the zipper piece of the back for the back of the headrest pillow. And I want the stripes to match on this also. So I'm going to check that before I sew it so I don't have to re-sew it. The hinge will get sewn right here at the top. And then the pillow is actually going to flip over this way. So this will be the front of the pillow. So I know it's going to match the front of the cushion. So first I'm going to sew this seam, and then I'm going to put the pillow together and then attach it to the piece. I want to check and make sure that the pillow front is going to match the pillow back. So the next step is to make the tucks in the corners of this. And we bring those two little cuts up next to each other, and that gives the pillow the depth that it needs. And I'm going to stitch that down.
To stitch it down, she'll sew approximately a ½ inch from the raw edge of the fabric, or a little bit less. She'll do that at each of the 4 corners. Here she's pinned it in place so you can see it better.
There's what it looks like when it's pinned. And this piece from my old pattern is actually going to be a little too long to fit on this piece. So to compensate for the length of this piece, so I want a really big stitch length. And I'm going to stitch, and as I stitch, I'm going to push the fabric towards the back of the foot, which will take up a little bit of this extra fullness.
This practice also gives the pillow more shape.
It won't be much, but it is a little bit, and that's all we need. And you can see how that just took in a little bit of fullness right there to make the depth of your pillow.
Nicely done. Now we'll do the same thing to the other end.
Now with the hinge on the inside of this and the zipper opened up a little bit,
Right sides face each other. Hinge is on the inside. Stripes lined up.
Right sides together. I'm going to stitch all 4 sides of this.
It is recommended that this be pinned in place so that the stripes line up perfectly all around the perimeter. Obviously, they will not line up on the 2 short sides, only the long sides. But by using pins like this, you can make sure that nothing moves when you take it to the sewing machine and sew. We'll sew all around the perimeter, and this time our machine needs set up for 5mm. We're going to move it back down to about a 4mm stitch length. And we're sewing about a 1/2 inch from the raw edges of the fabric.
And don't cut your hinge when you do this side seam. Make sure it's out of the way.
The hinge is on the inside. We don't want to sew through that. Alright, we're going to move on and show you what this looks like finished.
Okay, now I'm going to open up the zipper on the pillow and turn it right side out. Here's the little tucks that we made and a little bit of gathering right there, easing.
Very nice. Now we can add this assembly to the backrest and continue sewing it together.
So here's my zipper panel that we made. Here's the hinge. And there's the front of the pillow.
We can sew the backrest, back, bottom plate to our assembly now.
So this is the back plate of the back piece, and it needs ties up here at the top. I'm going to move those down just a little bit when I put them on so they're not right up at the corner. So those will get sewn on. Now I want to put these ties down a little bit away from the corner, so I'm going to measure down 3 inches and make a pencil mark outside on my cording so I know where to put the ties.
If you've chosen not to attach a headrest pillow, you'll skip the steps regarding that.
And then the pillow gets attached with a zipper facing you, and the stripes will match. And we're going to attach the ties and the little pillow all at the same time.
2 ties per side, that way we can tie to each other. No need to do reversing because we are going to be sewing this onto boxing later on. Line up the stripes for the hinge on the pillow if you have that. And sew the hinge in place. If you don't have an optional headrest, you would skip sewing this hinge onto this plate. And you would skip ahead and sew on the boxing to the plate and the zipper plaque, which is coming up next. When you reach the other side, sew the ties in place there as well. Ours are about 3 inches down from the corner to keep it away from the pillow.
So here's what this piece looks like now with the ties attached and the pillow attached to it. I'm going to leave the pillow on the inside as I attach the boxing. So I'm going to put the zipper on first again and line up the stripes, and then go back and attach the boxing to it.
Again, leave some room at the end so the boxing can be attached to the zipper plaque on both sides. Since we did this all in entirety when we sewed the seat cushion together, we're going to skip ahead here. Here we're sewing the boxing to this plate. Once that's done, we're going to fold the assembly at each corner to find the appropriate spot to create a clip for the corner.
Here's our pile of other cushions with the back plate attached, and we are going to leave all of this inside and attach this last piece with the zipper at the hinge and stitch all the way around all four sides. And we want to make sure everything stays inside, all the ties and the pillow and all of this pile of cushions ends up on the inside. Open up your zipper a little bit so you can get the cushions out after you're finished.
Everything is on the inside of this pillow assembly, so when you sew around the perimeter, be careful not to sew any ties, or if you have the optional headrest pillow, be sure you do not sew through that as you sew around the perimeter.
Make sure you keep all of this stuff out of the way. You don't want to stitch anything into the seam except for the boxing.
If you've done it correctly, the notches on the boxing should line up with each of the corners.
You know, this is probably hard to see, but this is the fold at my zipper, and there's the clip at the corner. This is pretty thick right here because of that hinge.
A home sewing machine will likely struggle with this fabric assembly, but not the Sailrite Ultrafeed sewing machines. You may need a heavy-duty sewing machine to do a job like this.
Now, when you go down the side, you need to push all of this inside and keep it out of your way.
The majority of our sewing for this cushion cover is completed. As you can see, the Sailrite Ultrafeed is a phenomenal sewing machine for upholstery applications like this. Buy yours today from Sailrite. We're going to skip ahead to where we started sewing, and this assembly is now sewn together.
So here's what we have with the boxing attached to the front and the back of the back cushion, and the zipper's opened up a little bit. I'm going to open it up the rest of the way, and everything is inside. There's the two cushions, and then I can turn this one right side out.
Next, we'll measure and cut our foam that we'll insert inside of our lounge chair cushions.
I'm ready to cut the cushion cores for this Chase Lounge, and I'm going to cut my cushion cores at the same size that I cut my plates, the 22.5 wide by 19 long for the seat, 22.5 wide by 29 long for the foot piece, and 22 wide by 28 long for the back.
What type of foam should you use? Since this is a lounge chair and it's typically outdoors, using a polyurethane foam like what we're showing here is an option. However, if it gets soaking wet, it will take a long time to dry out.
So this is my seat. This will be the foot piece.
For polyurethane foam, if it gets wet, it could take weeks to dry out. Another option is using dry fast foam. Dry fast foam is meant for water to go right through the foam, especially if a breathable fabric is used, like the Sunbrella Upholstery fabric we're using in this video. So whether it's polyurethane foam or dry fast foam, both of them can be easily cut with an electric kitchen knife, as Cindy is doing here. Because we're using a polyurethane foam, we're going to wrap or encase the foam in what we call spun-bonded pillow protector fabric. And that will help to prevent the water from possibly soaking into the foam. You can also do that same thing with a silk film.
We're going to use this spun-bonded fabric to add a water-resistant layer to this foam, and it does not have to fit perfectly, so I'm just going to cut a few inches extra all the way around and stitch it together. And I'm going to do this for all three of the cushions.
In this situation, since we're using the spun-bonded pillow protector fabric, we're going to sew a cover over top of the foam. If we were using silk film, we would simply wrap the foam in that. We've placed a bowl under the spun-bonded pillow protector fabric and then filled the top cavity with water. After at least 7.5 minutes, let's check to see if any water leaked through. Because both the Sunbrella Upholstery fabric and this fabric is water resistant, that will help to prevent water from majorly leaking into the foam. As you can see, there's no water in the bowl.
I'm going to put a couple pins in just to hold this together while I stitch it. I have 2 layers here, and I'm just going to stitch around, down one side, across the one side, and up, and I'm going to leave this whole side open to stuff my cushion core in.
Please excuse the noise in the background. That's our 50-foot plotter table plotting fabric. To sew this fabric, we're still using the same V69 polyester thread. It's a little bit on the heavy side for the lightness of the fabric. So Cindy will pull on the back of the fabric as she's feeding it through the sewing machine to keep the puckering to a minimal. She's also reduced some of the upper tension of the sewing machine to create a stitch that will not pucker the fabric as much. Once 3 sides are sewn, insert the foam. Then, once the foam's inserted, then we can sew closed the other end.
Now you can see that this is pretty sloppy, and that's okay. This fabric is very, very fine, and when we stuff it into the cushion, you won't know that this extra fabric is there.
After our foam covers are made, we can move on and do the same thing for the headrest pillow.
So for the headrest pillow, I'm going to use the old piece that we used to make our pattern out of for the pillow itself. And we also want this to be a little bit bigger, and it will compress into the form when we put it in. So I'm just going to cut like 3/4 of an inch to an inch larger than my pattern. And I'm still going to take the tuck in the corner to fit the back.
Cindy's cutting 2, but we only really need 1. We'll cut it 24.5 by approximately 12.5.
So I'm going to just make a little clip here, and I have 2 layers here. I don't need 2 layers of this, I only need 1. So I have about 24.5 by 12.5. This is for the front piece. And then for the back that had the zipper in it on the pillow itself, I'm going to cut it just a little bit bigger. And remember, it had these 2 little pieces on the sides.
We'll cut this back side to 23.5 by approximately 9.5 inches. No need to be terribly accurate here. This is just a pillow insert.
So this one is around about 9.5 by 23.5. So when I get ready to sew this, I'm going to put a couple pins in it and just tuck these corners. It's just the cover of the pillow. It does not have to be pretty or perfect.
Once the corners are pinned, as Cindy is doing here, that's all 4 corners, we can take it to the sewing machine and sew the perimeter all around, leaving one side open so that we can insert a fiber fill. She'll sew all the way around, except for she'll leave one of the long sides open. Because each corner has a little bit of shape, she will sew about 2 inches from the corner on the one long side that she leaves open. We will not show that.
Turn this one right side out so the seam's on the inside, and stuff this one with fiber fill. And I just keep putting handfuls in until it's the way that I feel like it should be.
Sailrite's polyester fiber fill is perfect for pillow stuffing and throw pillows. It has a beautiful soft feeling.
And I'm just going to put a couple pins in it and then take it back to the machine and stitch it closed.
Cindy is now creating a small hem and pinning the side that she left open so that the polyester fiber fill could be filled in the spun bonded pillow protector fabric. Then where she stops sewing, she places the Press her foot on top of that stitch by a couple inches so she sews over it, and then sews the opening shut, pulling the pins as she approaches them. Don't worry about a pretty look, because this is just an insert for the inside of the actual headrest pillow that is made from the Sunbrella Upholstery fabric from Sailrite.
The first cushion that we're going to put in our cover is the back cushion, and then we'll do the seat and the foot, and last the pillow.
The stuffing foam inside of new cushion covers is rather difficult, and it does take a little bit of time. Compress the foam until it fits. We do want a nice tight fit. That's why the foam is slightly larger than the cover. That is intentional. Once the foam is inserted, you may have to run your hand down to the corners to be sure that it's pushed into the corners appropriately. As you can see, it's a very tight fit, and that is exactly what we want. It'll make the cushion look best.
There's one cushion in. Now we're going to put the seat in. There's my seat in, and you can see that you don't see that polyester fabric. It's invisible from the outside.
All that's left now is to insert the headrest pillow insert that we made out of the spun bonded pillow protector fabric.
Now we can put the headrest pillow in. And this had the tucks in the corners. We want those to go towards the front, the same place where the tucks in the corners are on the cover that we made.
This project is a gorgeous project and makes a wonderful lounge chair cushion. No matter what kind of frame it fits in, whether it be wood or metal or even plastic. Use the ties to keep the cushion on the lounge chair even in high winds.
So your pillow can flip to the back if you don't want to use it, and it will just hang there. And if you feel like the ties are too long, you can always trim those off after you're finished.
Coming up next is the full materials lists and tools that we used to build this lounge chair cushion. Since most lounge chairs are typically used outdoors, we recommend the best indoor-outdoor upholstery fabric in the world, Sunbrella Upholstery fabric from Sailrite. Here's the tools and materials list. Typically, most lounge chairs are approximately the same size as the one we made, so here's the amount of materials that you'll need to order for your lounge chair. All of the materials and most of the tools can be ordered at Sailrite. This completes the tutorial on how to make lounge chair covers. You'll find thousands of decorative fabrics that will work for lounge chairs, or hundreds of Sunbrella upholstery fabrics at www.sailrite.com. Here are 2 related videos you may want to click on now. For more free videos like this, be sure to check out the Sailrite website or subscribe to the Sailrite YouTube channel. It's your loyal patronage to Sailrite that makes these free videos available. Thanks for your loyal support. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.